As a collaborative learner, I personally am very interested in group dynamics and the concept of collaboration as differentiated learning. I personally have a good idea about how collaborating helps me contextualize and absorb information, but I would like to learn more about how collaborative learning can help not just my students who enjoy collaborative learning, but all students in my classroom. I believe that every student can be included in collaborative learning activities in a meaningful way, and I truly believe that for these types of activities to be successful, every student must be involved. This is what led me to selecting my research topic. There have been so many times in placement where most students were engaged right from the beginning of the activity, but a select few students weren't for whatever reason. Sometimes it was that they were not happy with their group. Sometimes it was after work had commenced and maybe their ideas were not being heard by the group. Whatever the reason, I want to learn some strategies that will hopefully help to engage every single student. Therefore, my research question is, what are effective strategies that will engage all students in collaborative learning activities? For this question, I will be focusing my research on a class of French immersion grade 5 students. My previous practicum block was in a French immersion class. And French immersion classes typically have quite a bit of group work, as students are encouraged to use French language with their peers when working. So two key concepts my research will revolve around are collaborative learning and student engagement. Collaborative learning being when students are working together to solve a problem, create some sort of product, or simply discuss concepts together. When we talk about student engagement in this context, it refers to the degree of attention, curiosity, interest, optimism, and passion students have during the collaborative learning activities. Going into the preliminary research section of the project, I chose to begin by doing a broad search looking at effective group work and seeing what kinds of research has been done. Soon I found lots of articles talking about specific studies conducted in classrooms or outlining exemplary activities designed by experienced educators. The articles I choose to review are a variety of types of sources. The first article I'm going to talk about is called Consistently Inconsistent: Teachers' Belief in Help Seeking and Giving When Students Work in Groups. So this article talks about an important part of collaborative activities I'd not considered before: how teachers provide help once the group work has begun. Sometimes for select assignments, teachers will say that no help can be given at all, if the purpose of the activity is to discover or solve a problem with minimal assistance. In most cases, teachers are circulating around the room, giving help to students when needed. And in all classrooms I've ever been in, it is encouraged to solve problems and find answers amongst group members, instead of asking the teacher at the first sign of a question. The study followed several teachers and grouped them into two categories. The first category was teachers that encourage students to find answers from their group, others in the class, or the teacher. The second category being teachers that encourage the students to only find the answers by working with their own group members. This study and previous research found that the more effective strategy for student learning is to have students work in their groups to find answers, instead of looking elsewhere. This is supposed to promote group cohesion and collaborative problem solving. Another interesting finding of the study is that younger or newer teachers are more likely to promote intergroup help seeking instead of asking the teacher. After reading the article, I began to reflect on how much help I provide to students and whether I ever turn students with questions back toward their groups for answers. The research is showing that this is the most effective strategy for collaborative learning, even if that means it takes students longer to find what they're looking for. Another article I looked at was called You Should Collaborate Children: A Study of Teachers' Design and Facilitation of Children's Collaboration Around Touchscreens. This study explored the concept of touchscreens in the classroom, specifically what effects touchscreens have on students and the classroom environment during collaborative activities. Researchers conducted 3 narrative-style observations of 3 different classrooms. They found that in 2 of the 3 narratives, that although students were all working around the same device or screen, that they thought of their actions and contributions as their own and sort of separate from the group. In narrative 3, students had a feeling of shared space and a shared goal as they worked through a problem together. This study shows how new technology is not necessarily conducive to group work, even if students enjoy working with touchscreens. They're not always positive for collaborative activities. Regardless of the touchscreens, the research found that the most important factor guiding collaborative learning was the teacher. They are the ones who begin important discussions and, as the article says, act on moments that present learnable collaboration. This article makes me question what I knew about technology and collaborative learning, even though it's new and seems attractive. Touchscreen devices may not be the most effective option when it comes to group activities. The third article I'm going to talk about is called Collaboration by Design, Encouraging Positive Interactions Through Engaging Tasks. This article outlines an exemplary collaborative activity where students must construct a feature at an amusement park out of K'NEX. Students are each given a role to play in the group: supply manager, time manager, data manager, and the strategic questioner. Each member of the group has a specific and unique role to play, which, as the article argues, empowers students and encourages accountable talk. Another benefit to this activity was that students were given open-ended prompts, so there were lots of options available to them. The article states that research on collaborative learning shows that if a group shares a common goal, they're much more likely to work meaningfully together. And finally, the article promotes reflective discussion at the end of the activity. This gives students the chance to voice their opinions and feel like they're being a part of the process. This article gives so many great points and strategies for incorporating collaborative activities in the classroom. Out of all the articles I reviewed for this research process, this 4-page article was perhaps the most useful. Now I'm going to talk about data collection for my research. The research will take place with 2 grade 5 French immersion classes, most of the research and data collection happening in the actual classroom. Some analysis will be done on student work, but that can be done elsewhere. It is only myself, the teacher, and the students involved in the actual research. The first source of information will be anecdotal notes. I definitely want to take anecdotal notes throughout for both individual students and the classroom environment as a whole. With anecdotal notes, you're better able to record small details that you observe during a busy activity. Collaborative activities are usually very busy and noisy, which is why anecdotal notes will be an effective, practical, and genuine source of data collection for my research. The second source of data will be self-assessments. So self-assessments will serve as a valuable source of communication and reflection for my students in my research. There will also be a section of comments and suggestions so that all students have a say. Self-assessments will permanently record student opinions and emotions, as well as promote reflection on whether they made an effort to succeed at the activity. The third source of data will be samples of student work. So while a good piece of student work does not necessarily mean good group work, samples of student work will certainly give me a perspective on whether concepts are being understood and whether students were able to follow instructions while in their groups. So all 3 of these types of research in conjunction will give me a better picture of how engaged students are in the collaborative work. For example, if it is noted here that there is a student who is not engaged in my anecdotal notes, I can try to ascertain why that is in the self-assessment portion of the research. The sample of student work will give me an idea of whether the activity was effective in teaching the given curriculum and whether students were ultimately able to work together. The 3 sources of information will give me a genuine and practical perspective on whether the activities are a success or whether they need to be changed. These 3 types of research are in a way collaborative in and of themselves. They each take a different perspective and work in unison to give a wider scope. The anecdotal notes are from the perspective of the observer, which is in this case the teacher. The self-assessments take the perspective of the student into account. By completing a self-assessment, they're reflecting on their own participation as well as what they thought about the whole process. The samples of student work are the unbiased result of student efforts, totally impartial and without context. Student work can provide that cold, hard perspective that is sometimes necessary for research. The data will be collected in the classroom or wherever the collaborative work is taking place, and the participants will be the 2 grade 5 French immersion classes. The self-assessment tasks will be conducted when students are working alone, as not to influence their responses. The entire research process should take no more than 3 months. Over the course of the 3 months, several collaborative activities will be conducted, some taking place over the course of a week, others only taking a few periods to complete. Over the course of the 3 months, anecdotal notes will be taken during relevant times of group work. It is not always practical to take anecdotal notes during an activity, but the more often anecdotal notes are taken, the more important data can be collected. Student self-assessments will be completed every second collaborative activity to gain insight into students' progress and will also provide more information of student opinion. Finally, student work will be always collected and analyzed to track student progress and gain more insight into what students are achieving during these activities. So now I'm going to talk about ethical considerations. The names of students will only appear on my assessment notes and their own student work. If more analysis is done on individual students, their names will be changed to something else in my notes. Pictures will not be necessary during my research other than perhaps pictures of student work, and any information that is shared with colleagues will have student names removed. I believe that this action research could be very valuable in my teaching career. Collaborative activities are absolutely essential in any class or subject, so having the knowledge to conduct effective activities is of great importance. One of the most important features of collaborative activities is that everyone is involved and taking part. Having effective strategies implemented can avoid the problem of students disengaging from the lessons. Thank you very much for watching my presentation.